What's good, Atlanta? This is the Blog and Dirty podcast, where Dirty Bird is the word. If you haven't heard, I'm your host, John Buhler, lead writer for FanSided. This is an Atlanta Falcons podcast for the FanSided site, Blog and Dirty. Again, I'm John Buhler. I cover college football in the NCAA division, diehard Falcons fan. Got a fun show for you guys today. Hopefully a train doesn't go by. We're back at Lucy the Greyhound's house, and train's about 30 feet that way. So hopefully it'll work out for us. I've got a few thoughts here, kind of picking my brain a little bit more on what happened on Thursday night. And then we've had a little bit of extra time to let that marinate ahead of our Week 16 game at the Arizona Cardinals. But before you begin, be sure to hit that like button, smash that subscribe button on YouTube, give us a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere there's podcasts. Really helps the show grow. Definitely check out stuff on Blog and Dirty, but yeah, I got a really exciting show for you guys here today. I'm all over the place. Just got out of a meeting. And I'm just sneaking this in real quick. Christmas is coming up here. I know the Falcons are having another losing season, but, this episode's all about having, some momentum, some optimism heading into 2026. Lord knows we all need it. So, without further ado, let's get started here today with our first run of the day. And I'm going to run with the Falcons having a massive quarterbacking advantage versus Arizona. Yes, it's going to be Kirk Cousins versus Jacoby Brissett, two guys that were not tabbed to be starters at the beginning of the year. Obviously, Atlanta went with Michael Penix Jr. From the get-go, and Kyler Murray, the Heisman Trophy winner out of Oklahoma by way of A&M, he's the guy there in Arizona. Well, Penix got hurt. Murray's been hurt. They've both kind of been shut down for the season, so it will be the journeyman Brissett going for the Cardinals, who are 3-11. And it'll be Cousins going for the Falcons, who is 5-9. This is a 4:00 Eastern kick, mostly because Phoenix, Arizona is 3 time zones away. So 1:05 kick over there in the Valley of the Sun. Follow me on this. I think, even though Cousins has passed his prime, I think we've all kind of seen that. There have been moments over the last few weeks when he has been the starter where we saw that versus the Jets a little bit. We definitely saw that versus the Buccaneers last week. Maybe even in the first half a little bit versus Seattle before it inevitably hit the fan. But when Cousins has been out there and they've been able to put forth an offensive game plan centered around his skills, then that's huge for the Falcons. They're allowed to go under center more. They're allowed to do more than just operate out of pistol or shotgun like Michael Penix Jr. Had hoped for in Zach Robinson's offensive scheme. Again, I don't think Zach Robinson's a good OC. I've seen enough evidence over 2 years to prove that he's got a long ways to go to be good in this league. But at one point in time, Cousins was really good in this league, and it wasn't that long ago. It was with the Vikings. And there have been pockets here and there with the Falcons over the last 2 years where we have seen signs of hey, he is pretty good. The thing with the Cardinals is, look, I've got some things to kind of unpack here, and I'll probably do this more as the show kind of progresses. Again, you don't want to take any opponent lightly, but I was hanging out with my fiance, having dinner last night, and I came across the ticker. You see the bottom here, I guess on the ESPN, and it was showing all the NFL teams as win-loss records. And again, I mostly operate in college football now, and again, I cover the NFL through the lens of a tortured Falcons fan. As I was looking at this, I was like, man, some of these teams are really bad. Like the Raiders are 2-12. The Cardinals are 3-11. The Bengals are 4-10. So, it could always be worse than what we're experiencing here with the Dirty Birds. And I was very high in the Cardinals to start the year. Admittedly, I had them pegged to win the NFC West. I thought that thing was going to be a logjam. It was all going to be jumbled together. The winner was going to win 9 games. It is kind of jumbled together towards the top, with LA, with Seattle, with San Francisco. Just the Cardinals, just a sad bag of crap here. And again, I'll unpack that here a little bit more. The Falcons, they're clearly the third best team in the NFC South, whereas Carolina's ascending, Tampa's trending down, New Orleans is rebuilding. We're stuck somewhere in between all that. Not a good spot to be, but I will say this. Again, with the rest of the season, you got to play every game hard. I don't know if you're going to beat the Rams. You can certainly beat the Cardinals. You can definitely beat the Saints at home. You kind of need to take care of business. Try to be a 7-10 team. Maybe you can be 8-9 if you really catch fire here at the end of the year. Again, a lot of the losses were by close margins. To really bring this back to Brissett, I'm a big fan of Jacoby Brissett. I think he's a great dude. I think he was the last like Bill Parcells sort of project. I think he kind of grew up locally where Parcells was living in and around Florida, kind of helped recruit him to Florida a little bit, played some there, really cut his teeth at NC State. And then obviously played in the NFL, with a multitude of teams. He's been with the Browns, the Patriots, the Colts, probably the team that I would probably most closely associate him with. He's been with he's been with the Commanders. He's been with the Dolphins. I think whenever this guy is done playing, he's going to be a fantastic head coach or front office executive. I think people think the world of this guy. That doesn't mean he's a very good quarterback. And the idea of Brissett being good's never quite been there, whereas the idea of Cousins has been good has actually presented itself. And look, this doesn't mean that Cousins can't lay an egg. He's certainly capable of that. We saw him play like dog poo versus the Seahawks. We knew that he has a game like that in him every so often. Always seems to play his best versus the Buccaneers for some reason, regardless of where he's playing, which I think is kind of cool, especially that we're in division. Maybe he'll be part of this team next year. Again, I don't know what Arthur Blank, Terry Fonda, Raheem Morris, whoever's in charge wants to do. Again, I'm just kind of embracing 2026 for whatever it may be. I went into 2025, all sorts of grandiose expectations about this team, life, and everything like that. And 2025 was a challenging year for me. I did get engaged. Work's not been easy. Life's not, I don't have bad years, but this year is certainly pressing it in some instances there. But I'll say this, all things equal, even if this game is, at State Farm Stadium and in Glendale, Cousins is the better quarterback here. Cousins has always been the better quarterback here. And I think that make a huge difference. Again, Brissett, he'll turn the ball over too, but it's become very apparent that the Cardinals they're done with the Kyler Murray business of it all. They'd rather have a good guy, a guy that can rally the troops versus a mercurial toddler. But then again, maybe Murray's going to end up playing for the Falcons next year because that's just how it goes for us. But I'm really in on the Falcons having a big advantage at quarterback over the Cardinals in this one. And that, Bruce, let's move on to our second topic, our second run of the day. And this is kind of the other side of the coin here a little bit. I'm going to run with Jeff Ulbrich's defense making some turnovers. They've been close. I think they had that big, really sweet pick of Baker Mayfield last week. I think what Alford came up with that. And again, that was a team that's playing for something. Arizona's out of the playoff picture too. This is a game that's going to get, nobody's going to be watching this game outside of Falcons or Cardinals ties. It's going to be the least popular announcing crew there on Fox or CBS or whoever calls this game. I don't really know or care. Unless you have somebody in fantasy on either of those teams, don't need to watch, really. But we're Falcons fans, so we definitely have to watch because, good Falcons fans stay home. If you are in the Phoenix area, you could probably get tickets for cheap, and why not go cheer on the local team away from home. I look at the defense still playing incredibly hard. I think Ulbrich has leveled up as a head coach, after being the interim for the Jets. He goes back into a role that he's probably more suited for. And he's really made huge strides. He's been able to develop and pressure, without just blitzing from all different angles. The one thing that has been concerning though, is when a key player gets hurt, when we saw, like last week with Mike Hughes went down, they had to force in an undrafted rookie free agent, Kobe Bryant, and the Buccaneers and Josh Grizzard's like, we're going to throw in Kobe Bryant's direction the entire time. When we had that 5-game losing streak and Divine Diablo was out, they put JD Bertrand in there. They just ran at that Guardian Cap doofus the whole time. Like, they will do that. Our team is not deep enough to overcome this. This isn't Georgia. This isn't one of the best teams in the NFL. That's just not what we're about. But there's an opportunistic sort of component here with the defense. I think this team is still playing incredibly hard. They know they've got a really good unit on that side of the ball, and that makes me very, very excited about the future for this team, regardless of who the coach is. I love to retain Ulbrich. I'd love to have some sort of coaching continuity, but that may not be in the cards with this team in some instances. But I look at this, and I expect Cousins to play well, but I also know what he's capable of. He will turn the ball over. I think that the Cardinals looking at us like we're looking at them, where we're like, you know what? Maybe we can get these guys. We're probably coming in there with a little bit more pep in our step because we put the Buccaneers in a very tough spot. They're now 500. You're also looking at Arizona. We'll see what Michael Bidwell wants to do this upcoming offseason. As far as trying to project like who's going to force a turnover here, I think the Falcons are going to force 2, maybe 3. If you get to 3, you win this game by multiple scores. If they get 2, it could go either way. I think, again, the NFL and in college football, probably similarly with baseball, like if you are more than -3, like you can be -2 in both the turnover department and in errors, and you could still win. But if you commit more than 3 errors in the field and you commit more than 3 turnovers negatively compared to what the other people have, you're effectively like the chances of you winning go down considerably because you can't give decent teams extra possessions just like you can't give decent teams extra outs. This is how it works. As far as who I think could make a turnover, I keep going to Jesse Bates III. I think that he's ready for a pick. I think he's ready, like a midfield pick. Maybe a ball gets tipped, he comes up with it, maybe returns it 5-7 yards. Nothing too important other than the fact it's a change of possession. But I think it will come at a key point for the team, and I think Atlanta will get some points off it. Maybe not a touchdown, maybe a Zane Gonzalez field goal. He'll be back in the Valley where he used to kick field goals for the Sun Devils. So we'll see what happens there. As far as another turnover, I feel like Walker and Pearce, like coming off the edge, maybe Ellis, somebody in the backfield got like a strip sack of Brissett. And as far as a third one, it may be a kind of like a game sealer. Maybe the Cardinals are trying to come back in there to try to make a game of it, and they throw a pick in the end zone, and like Xavier Watts comes up with it. That always seems to kind of be the case, but that's kind of what I'm looking at. I'm looking at a midfield pick, a game stealing interception, and probably a strip sack of Brissett. And again, I'm probably expecting Cousins to throw like a pick or fumble it himself. That's just kind of the nature of the beast here. But I'm really excited about the Falcons defense here. I can't wait to see what Jeff Ulbrich and the boys do this time. And now that we got that done, let's move on to the second half of our show with some pass. I got a pass, man. I definitely oversold Monti Ossenfort and Jonathan Gannon as a pairing. I really did. I thought that they had, going into Arizona, when they hired Gannon away from the Eagles and they hired Ossenfort away from the Titans, that they were going to have alignment, that they were going to have symmetry, that they were going to be a galvanizing force to make the Cardinals a team worth talking about there in the NFC West. They made some interesting moves in the draft process. They've traded down. They seem to be like methodical with what they're doing. But Marvin Harrison Jr. has not been the same player since he got lit up by Javon Buhler there in the Peach Bowl Go Dogs. Kyler Murray has really regressed. Drew Petzing, I don't think, is a really good offensive coordinator. And even though I think Gannon will get another opportunity to be a head coach, I think it might be it for him there. He's kind of dorky a little bit, but I think that like he doesn't really sugarcoat it. I kind of feel like if it's bad, he kind of lets you know. And maybe that's part of the whole, being with the Eagles organization where there's a very front runner sort of component to it. And again, I thought this team was going to be a lot better. I mean, they were my pick to win the NFC West. I was kind of fading the Rams, didn't know what to make of the Seahawks, and I kind of thought the 49ers would be what they are right now. But the Cardinals are abysmal. They're atrociously bad right now. The other thing is, I think Ossenfort, like some of the decisions they've made, you look back at like kind of what the draft process is, who they've signed, what they've brought in, moves that look kind of smart at the time. It kind of feels like he Jedi mind tricked himself. Like he got in his own head a little bit. We kind of thought like, oh, maybe this is going to be like the West Coast version of the Lions, with Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell coming in there and trying to mix this thing up in a losing organization. Well, the Lions are a playoff caliber team. I don't know if they'll make it back this year. There's been positives there. I think obviously with Dan Campbell calling offensive plays now and John Morton kind of pulling back. But again, we expected the Lions to pull back a little bit because of coaching attrition. When you lose Ben Johnson to the rival Bears, and when you lose Aaron Glenn to the Jets, it's going to negatively impact you in some way. I just look at this pairing with Ossenfort and Gannon, two guys that I thought could bring interesting perspectives and alignment. It's just been disjointed this past year. And honestly, I think the big issue is honestly the Kyler Murray of it all. It's hard to build a winning team around a player who's not a winning player. You basically got a center fielder playing quarterback for you. Even though I had Kyler Murray on my fantasy team, I quickly benched him. He hasn't started. I've been kind of rolling with Dak Prescott and not winning a lot of games there this season. But it's become very, very, very apparent if you do not have the guy who is like of that certain personality to be quarterback, it's not going to work out for you. If you're a little more mercurial, if you're a little bit more of a loner, if you're a little bit more of a jerk, I'm not going to say swear on the show because I'm not going to do that. But when you got like a Jay Cutler, when you got a Jeff George, when you got a Kyler Murray, it doesn't matter how much talent you have. If you can't lead men, if you can't lead full-grown men with wives, kids, and mortgages to pay, like it's not going to work out for you because every team in the NFL is the best of the best. Everybody always says, "Oh, can Ohio State beat the worst team in the NFL?" No, not even close. 2019 would have lost to the worst Browns practice squad of all time. That's how this is. Don't be stupid. But the margins in the NFL, like I always say this, take the best team of the league and the worst team of the league and have the worst team of the league playing at the best team of the league's place. Okay, like right now, let's have the Tennessee Titans playing at the LA Rams, hypothetically speaking, or the Titans playing at the Broncos. One of those two. What's the spread? Are the Broncos or Rams laying 17 to the Titans? Maybe. In college football, you'll have the best team in the SEC versus the mid-tier team in the SEC hosting. Point spread's like 21 points. We see things where like a Big Ten team is playing some team in the MAC, and because they're both Division I, you'll see Ohio State laying 40.5 versus Miami, Ohio, who's not that bad there in the MAC. You get what I'm saying. And I guess to tie a bow on this with Ossenfort and with Gannon and everything like that, it's like, and again, I don't know what's going on there with the Cardinals brass, but from afar, it's looked like it's not working. When you're in it and the bullets are flying everywhere, maybe you can't see the forest or the trees. But probably the best way to say it is, I would venture to guess Arizona will probably clean house and they'll start again. Again, this is not going to be a very exciting coaching carousel. They're probably going to end up hiring Brian Flores because nobody else will hire him, for lack of a better word. Which is why, like, I against my better judgment, maybe you allow Raheem Morris, bring the boys back one more time. But then again, do you want to fire this guy's week 4 or 5 next year when we start out 0-3 or 1-4 or some nonsense? Like, you got to figure out like the right coaching staff and the right alignment. And he wanted to believe that Ossenfort was going to bring what was good about the Titans under Mike Vrabel. And again, it was going to bring what's good under Nick Sirianni from the Eagles here. And it just hasn't manifested in Arizona. And I feel bad for their fans. This is a team that had a lot of expectations entering the year, just like we did. There's other teams out there where it's been really difficult. Bengals is another one. I would say, well, the Jets, I don't really feel bad for you. You mean you're worse than us. That's like the one, I'm like Nelson to the Simpsons laughing at them. That's just how that goes. The Chiefs have had a rough season, but like, who cares? You won a bunch of Super Bowls, so you can go home and relax and not be annoying. When I recognize what's going on in Arizona and it's falling apart, it makes me kind of wonder, believe, like, are we really going to run this back with Morris, with Robinson? You can keep Ulbrich. I'd love to keep Ulbrich. Marquise Williams can go too. I'm more of a belief to keep Fontenot as a GM and Ulbrich as a defensive coordinator. But again, that's not really a clean break. Maybe you do need that. This is the second regime that Fontenot's overseen. And I think he's drafted well, but obviously there have been some key misses here. Like, you took Troy Anderson over Jacoby Dane. The whole 21 draft outside of Kyle Pitts was a disaster. Like, nobody is on this team. Drew Dahlman was good, but he not plays for the Bears. Richie Grant could never figure it out. Jalen Mayfield could definitely not figure that out. Shows what I know about projecting players. Again, I was not super high on James Pearce Jr. coming in. He's going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. Jalen Walker, I said, like, he's going to be an impactful player. The sacks may not show up, but he's been good. Love me some Xavier Watts. I've been pleasantly surprised at Billy Bowman when he's out there. Again, I'm okay with that. So, again, I feel bad for Cardinals fans because I don't think they have the right people leading their team. And let's get out of here with some punt, and let's make a pick against the spread versus the Cardinals for week 16. I almost put 15 down because I don't know what day it is anymore. All right, I am looking at the latest odds on FanDuel. 4:06 p.m. Eastern kickoff, not 4:05. So 1:06 Pacific. Right now, the Falcons are laying 2.5 on the road at Arizona. The associated money lines are Atlanta minus 152 at Arizona plus 128, meaning you need to bet $152 on the Falcons to get 100. And if you bet $100 on the Arizona Cardinals, you'll get 128. The over-under for this game is 47.5. I'm going to take the under. I think that these are two teams that are really kind of struggling to find hope and build something up. But I am going to take the Falcons to win and cover. I'm going to go with Atlanta to win something like 27-20. So again, barely the under. We're talking like 47 points. Atlanta wins by like a touchdown. Effectively, what's going to happen is Arizona's going to be driving. There's going to be like no reason the Cardinals should be in this game. And then like there'll be some sort of dumb Raheem Morris nonsense. Like the Cardinals get like 1 second left on the clock. They get a Hail Mary and it gets batted down. Or maybe the guy catches it, but he falls out of bounds. Like that's kind of what I'm expecting. And then we're going to be a very cool 6-9 on the season. That's exactly what's going to happen here. Not going to say book it, but why the hell not? It's the end of the year. We got New Year's Eve's coming up here. And again, I'm going to be coming to you guys semi-live after the game, in and around 7 on Sunday. I'll probably try to get this done before the Steelers record. It'll be quick. And yeah. And this, let me see what is this. And this was episode 72 of the Blog and Dirty Podcast. You can follow me, John Buhler, on Twitter X at Buhler118. You can follow the show on YouTube at Blog and Dirty FS. You can follow along on Twitter X at Blog and Dirty. Be sure to like, rate, listen, subscribe, review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere there's podcasts. Give us a 5-star review. Really helps the show grow. We're over 350 subscribers. You guys have been digging the shorts from yesteryear. Been checking out the playlist. Definitely check those out. Again, I've got it situated with post games, the weekly shows, and we got some interviews from back in the day too. So I've kind of reamped the back end there of our YouTube page. Again, doing these post game shows and these weekly shows like twice a week, it's not easy. Producer Hunter said, let's do a shorter episode for both, but it's a little more current. Obviously, it's been really helping you up with a podcast. You guys have been great just listening to it. The show is really growing. I know the season has not turned out how we wanted it to, but I'm really proud of each and every one of you sticking it out with me throughout the entire process. And again, this has not been easy, but once again, thanks for listening. And this is the Blog and Dirty Podcast.